5:30 Saturday. Glorious carnage. 66-18. The Tigers at Leichhardt. The highest score in history of the joint club. The highest score from a Balmain team. The highest score from a West team. And should have been 72 for the record. But anyway, Barney, what did the stats say?
Yeah, and if they'd got to 72, that would have been their biggest winning margin too, I think. 50-odd points. But
which also came against them, I think. Which also came against Cowboys.
From the Tigers. 11 tries to 3. 11 out of 11 conversions from Wakeham. He had the ball on a string. He was absolutely flushing them.
Brooks. I thought Brooks did kick one and Appy kicked two.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, carry on.
No,
but he did nail the first 9.
He was nailing them. Oh, that's right. Brooksy got a kick, and
yeah,
I don't know why they got Appy to do it at the end, but anyway, 1,000+ running meters for the Tigers. It's 10 lengths of the field they beat their opposition by. 257+ post-contact meters. 13 line breaks to 3. 55 tackle busts to 20. 15 offloads to 5. Forced dropout for the Tigers. 230 tackles against 356 made by Cowboys, and you could probably add 50-odd they missed. 4 errors to 12. 3 penalties conceded to 4. 3 ruck infringements against the Cowboys, and 1 inside the 10 against the Cowboys. Stafford Toa with 152 Supercoach points. Jerome Buller with 124. I've decided to write down everyone that got 100 in this game, so we're going to be going for a couple more. Wakeham with 119. Tupu with 109. Brooks with 103. And Appy with 100. Drinkwater the closest on 95. Holy fuckballs, Batman. What happened here, mate?
I don't know. It was awesome, though. It was great.
It was raining tries.
As I said,
there's 14 tries in 18 minutes.
Perhaps that Cowboys form line wasn't the strongest in hindsight, as I suggested. But and like we don't even talk about them. They were shit. They were terrible. The only standout just about obviously good on Drinkwater getting those points, but I thought Luciano was actually quite good, getting booed every time he touched the ball. But he looked like
he was good.
He looked like their only positive, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you make of the Tigers, Barn?
Tries every 5 or 6 minutes, man, and 80% of them were the Tigers. They were absolutely running amok on the edges of the field. They looked quite good with their ball movement again. They played very up-tempo, very similar to Parramatta. They came out with a plan to stretch the edges, but they didn't shirk away from the middle either. They gave that a good working over, as you can see with the 1,000+ running meters. They were really well controlled. They're extremely controlled.
They've completed over 90% for the last month.
Throwing the ball around all over the place and scoring wherever. You were very controlled as well, mate. I was expecting your head to explode by the end of the match, but I think that's the calmest I think I've ever seen you when you've watched a game with the Tigers.
Well, and as you know, when it was 36-18, I was waiting for us to fuck it all up. I genuinely was waiting for us to lose this game. And then we scored another 30 points.
They were aggressive. They had attacking plays upon attacking plays. They obviously went out of their way to get the ball out to young Tupu and Junior Tupu and Toa every opportunity they could when they once they were well on top, because they knew that they were just giving their opposition a bath out wide. Those two players, they were running amok over against their opposition. It was as crisp attack as I think I've seen this year.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, it was flooded by some very ordinary defence out wide at times. But just the ball movement and the consistency of it, without the ball hitting the ground, without the errors and all the rest of it on the back of it. There's some really nice little plays there with the Appy run around was lovely to see, and a couple of crash balls with some big blokes going through. It's fantastic. They looked $1 million.
They did. I could wrap everyone on the field just about, because they all had a moment too, which was pretty cool. But let's work from the ruck first, because I loved Appy's touches in this.
They intimidated the Cowboys in the middle of the field.
Yeah, first of all, the forwards owned him. Papi was just, that was Parramatta. That was what he was producing at Parramatta. He was physical. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be involved in any time the ball came his way. He wanted
Bateman was close
to beat
to
a bloke.
best.
And Bateman was Bateman, it doesn't reflect in the stats, but Bateman, he was outstanding in this game, but he's not the sort of bloke that has a lot of stat stuff. But some of the stuff he did was so damaging. Even just
He scares the shit out of defenders.
well, first of all, he's not the biggest back row, but he throws blokes around. He throws around blokes twice his size. But just a couple of them where
Touch is a skill.
where
To go
they
with it.
where he'll have the ball, there'll be ball movement, and he'll just take that second to get into the line before he keeps going.
Hold it through,
and he's drawn a bloke in, and then the gap opens up for whoever's on his shoulder. Is fantastic. So skill there. But Appy's touches, the two crash plays, I love the way he throws out the back and then hits the front man. Like he shapes to throw out the back and you hit the bloke. They were both beautiful touches there. And we're seeing we've got to see Jareem Buller ball in hand as well. We've seen how good he is in defence, but
he just doesn't seem to miss in defence.
No.
There was one or two times where he just completely shut down the attack. The Cowboys made a break and he just comes over and just swamps the bloke.
He's just got what they say about superstar sports when they have that extra time, but it seems like he just picks them in tackles as he's done in games leading up to this. He doesn't drop high balls. He reads attack well.
Body position, fantastic.
But his attack here was, as I said, he's still green. He's still only learning this game, but just he picked the right times to run. It felt in this game, he picked the right times to pass or to take the line on then pass, and he worked out to follow Bateman and Appy around, and obviously that helped.
Not a bad idea.
And so he was fantastic. And Luke Brooks was in his 200th game was outstanding. Probably his best game of rugby league. Just had the ball on a string. The last couple of weeks, what he's done well. So first, whether it's a conscious thing from Sheens or whether it's just how it's come about, but to start the season, he was just running every time he touched the ball, and he's now reined that back, and now he's picking the right times to run and creating that bit of doubt. So whatever they've done to get his game back on track, the last month from him has been good, and this was great. He had the confidence to kick early, and perhaps it's just those years, as I said, going all the way back to our 5-hour season preview. Perhaps he's just been under the wrong coaches and wrong teams for a few years, where he's not necessarily a 5 tackle and hoik halfback. He's something else, and that's what they've worked with here, and that's why they've been chasing, I guess, the controlling half to help that out. But the combination's growing here. I thought he was great again, absolutely brilliant. But as I said, I can keep wrapping blokes. The last two I will wrap is Junior Tupou, who and I did say last week when we didn't score any points, they need to get early ball to some of these blokes that can beat guys one-on-one or close to line, and they did that this game. Tupou, two very impressive tries, one out of just nothing, a loose ball he picked up and beat 4 blokes and scored. And Stafford Toa gave Val Holmes an absolute bath in defence, out-muscled him, palmed him off a few times, stepped him a few times, beat him for pace, and looked like a superstar, looked like a bloke on a great upward spiral. So hopefully, in the past, the Tigers would have gone and signed all these blokes for 900,000. So sold him.
Okay.
So one or the other, there's no in between. So hopefully, as I said, they've with Joff going, and I want to give him a shout out because he was our best player in a bad time over the last 18 months. So they've just decided to invest with the juniors and let the older forward go. And hopefully they do make an effort to wrap up your Tupou, your Toas, and your Bullers. Now they're putting themselves in a shop window. And and lastly, our props were great. Clemens, I think, missed 1 tackle in 6 weeks, and Stefano was physical, got involved. And when you're a 20-year-old prop, you now go to an Origin camp. Hopefully he can bounce off it and really step up with some.
That's what we were kind of expecting out of him last year, I think.
Yeah, he was never fit, I don't think.
He took a little while to get going this year, but his last 3 or 4 weeks have been very, very impressive. Extremely good in this game. The only ones that I probably mentioned out of the Cowboys, I thought Cotter and McLean did a job for their team. They weren't, by no means outshone their opposition, but they did their job. There's a couple of moments I felt that weren't bad. And Drinkwater was probably the only threat in attack. not that there was many of them, but most of the time it was him when he was involved.
Yeah.
That created that. You mentioned everyone. I think the only bloke you didn't mention was Twile, who off the bench was very strong again.
Oh, even he was involved in a run around.
Yeah,
a wrap
yes,
around.
he was. How he doesn't get on the back of one of those crash plays?
Surely it's coming.
Come on, bro.
It was the only thing missing from this game. It was a 12 try.
Pole, another one you probably might have skimmed over. I thought that was pretty impressive from him as well. But yeah, Buller was amazing. Tyler was untouchable for most of the night, and mine, he was the best player on the field. It's 2 or 3 really strong performances back to back from him, and he was just uncontrollable in this game. They could not get anywhere near him. I had Brooks for the 2. I thought, as you mentioned, everything you said about him was correct. And then I either had 1 of 3 for the 1 point, Wakeham, Appy, or Buller.
I think you've probably got to give it to Buller. I had Buller or Appy or Bateman. So, hey, that's who you said. There you go.
I said Wakeham.
Oh, Wakeham. Okay, sorry. Wakeham was great too. So, tricky one to divvy up, but give it to Buller, I suppose.
Give it to Buller. Yeah,
is he odds on now for Rookie of the Year?
very close.
I can't think of too many.
No.
Is Hopgood a rookie?
Is he considered a rookie?
I'd have to look.
Depends how many he played last year.
He might have played 5 last year. I'm not sure, through Origin or whatever. I'd have to look.
Yeah, if he plays the rest of the season, you think it's a shoo-in for that award.
But exciting. It's and without sounding like a dick, you look at teams coming off this round. I'm going to anyway. But there's going to be teams that probably don't want to play the Tigers in the next month.
Yeah.
Compared to your Cowboys and Dragons and Roosters and whoever else.
I don't think there'd be really anyone except for maybe the top 2 or 3 teams that would want to play them in that kind of mood they were in on the weekend.
Well, it's such a funny thing all the way through, and obviously you watched the game with me, and I didn't quite know how to take it, to be honest. But to have it happen at Leichhardt, Brooks's 200th after the couple of years we've had was just like this big. Feels like this big release of wow. Maybe there's something here again. So hopefully,
would have been a party in there on Saturday.
Oh, for sure. Hopefully, and the good thing is they've got the bye now to get their heads back in together, and hopefully,
considering that their biggest struggle all year, like they've got okay matching teams in the middle of the park.
Yeah,
the biggest problem has been scoring points, and they've just proved. I know they've played one of the teams that have really struggled this year in defence, but 11 tries don't come around ever really.
No, that's right.
Maybe once every 2 seasons, a team might score 60 odd points. So that's something that they can really pin their flag to, and hopefully continue on this year and rack up some points against some other teams.
And I believe they're hitting Melbourne and Penrith without Origin players, I believe. So, all of a sudden you put another 2 or 3 together in a month. Everyone's feeling pretty good about themselves. All right. The main event Saturday was 24-16. Storm defeating the Dolphins. Interesting game to analyse, but what did the stats say?
Had 3 tries to 4, 2 out of 3 conversions, played 4 out of 4. Sinbin for the Dolphins, 72% completion, played 89% for the Storm. 246 plus running metres for the Storm, 5 line breaks to 3. 39 tackle bust to 35. Might have been the Dolphins. Did you double check that, John? Who had the most running metres? 5 offloads for both teams, 2 forced dropouts to 1, 340 tackles by the Dolphins, played 302 from the Storm.
Melbourne led the run meters, 1484.
Okay.
And what was the other one? Tackle breaks. Yeah, it was 39 Dolphins, 35 Melbourne.
12 errors to 9, 1 penalty conceded to 5 against the Storm. 2 ruck infringements from both teams, 2 inside the 10 against Melbourne. Cody Nikorima with 97 Supercoach points, Sako with 97, and Katoa with 90 for the Storm. Very good, aggressive game of footy. They really got stuck into each other, but the forward packs obviously had a point to prove against each other, and they got quite personal there.
I was going to say there was it was more personal than I expected. Actually, they did set out to, give it to each other.
First time I think the Dolphins have blown it. With being too far pumped up. Like this year, every time that there's been this was obviously a target game. This was an emotional game. This was something that they'd set out to really dominating in the middle of the field, and that's the way they came out at the start of the game. They went too far. They went over the top. Kenny Bromwich and Kafusi, probably the main two offenders. Just way too much niggly bullshit, errors, sin binnings, penalties conceded just by being ultra aggressive and letting the aggression get to them and going over the top and silly shit in the middle of the field. And I think it cost them in this game, to be honest. A couple of them, obviously, Kafusi at the start of the game, 3 minutes in or whatever it is, and you get sent to 10, that's a big deficit to your team having basically been on the back foot to the first 10 or 15 minutes.
And they march upfield and score next set.
Takes a lot to get back into it. A lot of times it was when the Dolphins had the Storm pinned in their own sort of 20-meter line, and they just became that.
Was it this game? And they marched. Was it this game? There's one or two marched for lip as well.
Yeah.
I think Tom Gilbert gave. I think it might have been Gilbert gave the ref a serve.
Just ultra aggressive and just went too far and gave away penalties, relieving penalties to let the Storm get out of their own end and down the other end of the field. I think they were just too hyped up for this game, to be honest. They put in a good show to keep it as close as they did, and they were still a chance of snatching the game at the back end. But I think they just did their own heads in.
You combine that with because ultimately they put it back together defensively in the second half. They won. What did they win? 8 or 12-0. And I think and it sounds stupid to say, if they execute, they still win this game. I think there was probably there's 2 or 3 thrown at Ewan Aitken's head where he managed to catch one of them, and it's a different result. And
as good a game as Cody did have, he also probably bombed 2 or 3 opportunities.
Yeah, they could have in the back end of this game. They had their chances to win this game, and created their chance to win this game. They just couldn't finish it. So I think it's a learning curve. Some of these older forwards, I guess, even at 33, 34, can learn from this. Bennett will make a point not to fucking do it again, and
you would think so.
They will come up from this. Storm. It's a funny one because Storm. I think that's more the tale of the game than the Storm really being excellent. But when they got their chances, they executed as well as they do.
The Storm were very controlled. They did sit back and absorb a lot of the Dolphins' aggression, especially in that first half. And as you mentioned, they took their opportunities when they got them. A couple of them were exactly that, opportunities. They weren't created by Melbourne Storm. It was a second kick or a bounce of a ball that sort of just went the Storm's way, and they were able to capitalise on it. But there was also some really nice play with the short grubber in for Munster's try. That was spectacular from Jerome Hughes, and he also had another couple of really big involvements and points for the Storm. He was probably my man of the match. Close enough to my man of the match. He was one of the best on the field anyway. It really came down to who took those opportunities to score points, and that fraction extra control and skill out of the playmakers for the Storm got them home in this game.
Yeah. Hard to argue because Nicarima and Marshall King created enough opportunity, just couldn't. So when the Storm best players are on, they don't miss. So and that's what happened in the first half. Nicarima's had a fantastic month since coming back into first grade, and I think he probably deserves to keep a spot. I think he's fullback this week in Hammer's absence.
He's in pretty best form, I think.
He looked dang. I thought he was going to get him home at the back end of this game, despite running into someone's knee there in the dying moments.
If Sullivan comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Cartel go back.
Potentially.
To the 14 position.
Potentially.
Cody stays on at 6.
I think he stays in the 17. I think at the moment Milford's on the bench. You'd somehow keep one of those on the bench ahead of Milford. Yeah. And he can cover. You can also place. I think he plays centre.
Cody's probably a little bit more versatile, so he might end up back at 14.
Can play dummy half. Can play wherever he needs to play. I thought Osaka was outstanding. I thought he was continuing the form of he's had all year.
This is the best I've ever seen him play. Like, he showed flashes of brilliance at Brisbane. But he has consistently been close to the best winger in the comp week in and week out.
Yeah,
His footwork is tremendous. He's big enough to just brush past people, and he's got enough pace to burn blokes as well. And he seems to be playing a lot smarter than he ever did.
Yeah. Agree. I had him in conversation for points here because I thought he was almost their best player.
I read my
you too,
my
sorry.
points wrong there for a second.
Go again.
I thought Kenny Bromwich should have been bin.
So do I. Actually, funny you say that. I was literally just Googling while you were talking what he actually got out of. He got a fine because we've seen that in the past. Spend a week out.
Whatever it is. Yeah. I definitely thought he should have been given 10 minutes.
And so did he.
Dumb and completely unnecessary.
The way Jesse carried, they thought he should have as well because they were shitting themselves about that.
Stone had a big game. Interesting this week. He goes into 13, so that'll be another good watch this weekend. SASA has been really good the last couple of weeks coming off the bench, and he was good again for the Dolphins. Gilbert and Lemuelu, fantastic again. Those guys are just putting in a shift every time they get a game at the moment for the Dolphins. What do you say about Aiken? His form's been
sensational,
tremendous,
really good.
He wasn't at his best in this game, but again, he was very good.
But he was creating opportunities, and like I said, I think he dropped one, but two others he could have scored a hat trick here. Service, I think one from Marshall King, one from Nick Rama, just were wayward passes, but he was in the right spot and just couldn't finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Marshall King was the best of the Dolphins forwards, I thought. Again, another really good game from him. And Asako and Cody, they're both in career best form, and they were probably their two best players on the field. Pene and Kamakamika did a really good shift again for the Storm off the bench. I thought they ball in hand. Those two are turning into some dominant forwards in this game. King and Liero, chuck in Welch, did a good job in the middle of the field. Grant tackled his ass off, but he wasn't really in sort of any real attacking mode in this game. Sort of went through the motions and did his job. Meany was fantastic, I thought. He created quite a few good opportunities. He's quick. He's got nice footwork, really light on his feet and hard to get hold of. Hughes and Katoa were the difference in this game, I thought. Alisi Katoa back to his seems to float in. Like at the Warriors, he'd play one good game and then have 3 or 4 games, whereas now he's flipped it around and it's the other way around. So he's playing, he's playing good 3 or 4 back-to-back really strong performances and then maybe going missing for a week here and there, which was probably last week for him or the week before. One of the recent games he's played anyway. But I thought he was fantastic in this game and a big part of why they probably won. I thought before that Hughes was probably the man of the match, but rethinking it, I think it was Katoa.
Okay. Yeah, no,
had a nice try. I think he had an assist as well. Continually a threat, ball in hand, offloading and fence-wise. Sako with 2. And then I had Cody or Jerome Hughes for the 1. Probably go to Hughes just because they won.
I think you've got to give it to Hughes, but Cody unlucky to. They were the 4 I had, and I was just going to see what mood you're in. But I think you're right. If Hughes was the one that executed, so you give him the point. Storm have the Cowboys coming up after the bye, then the Sharks, which will be Sands. No, the Sharks, then they won't have their Origin players for the Tigers. Then they'll have the Seagulls on the back of Origin. So they'll get through enough there. Meany and you should see who plugs into where, because we know take that spine. They'll have Hughes, but you take Munster and Grant out, we know that's a drop-off. So I imagine Meany probably moves to 6, and we see where. Geez, I'd love Pappenhausen to.
Who was the young fellow that played in the trials? He'd be
I know.
now.
Unless they unless they bring Pezzett back in, but I know who you're talking about, and I can't think the Kiwi.
He carved it up. Played 2 games.
Yeah,
Polynesian fella.
I know you're talking about. His Lightning. I can't think of his name.
Because he wasn't in the official 30, but he was on a development contract.
Oh, so he can play now.
He'd be due for a game now. Yeah. And then I don't know what they do with maybe Garlic. Shown some glimpses might go in there. Do they have a backup hooker?
Don't know.
Not that I can think of.
Probably, I assume it's Garlic. Anyway, we'll find out.
We will.
Sunday.
You can probably go and check the team list and find out right now.
That'll give us away. Get out of here, David, with your common sense. We'll get to that in the preview show because first of all, we have to talk about the Titans finding a way to lose 20-18 to the Bulldogs. They can.
I'll tell you why they did, because I changed my tip fucking 2 minutes to go before kick-off. I declared the Dogs the winners last week, and then I went and changed it fucking 2 minutes to go to the Titans because I was having an absolute horrible weekend on the tip again, which is a consistent theme of my fucking tipping this year.
Well, that's like I honestly would have tipped anyone in the comp against the Roosters on Friday night, except for the Dragons. But I should have. Anyway, we're propping up the ladder.
In this game, one I really wanted to change was the Raiders from the Raiders to Manly and leave the Dogs, and I went the other way around and fucked them both up. So.
Well done, David. That's why I'm now ahead of you.
4 tries to 3, 2 out of 4 conversions for the Dogs, 2 out of 3 for the Titans. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for the Titans. A missed 2-point field goal attempt for the Titans. 85% completion played, 84%. 106 plus running meters for the and 104 post contact meters for the Titans. So they won the middle of the field for part of the game. 2 line breaks to 4. 29 tackle busts played, 43 for the Titans. 9 offloads to 19. 2 forced dropouts to 3. 350 tackles played, 316. 5 errors to 9. 8 penalties conceded to 6. A ruck infringement against both sides. David Fafita with another fantastic performance on 116 Supercoach points. Tino with 108. Matty Burton with 96.
Geez, Titans find new ways.
Man. They owned this game for 40 minutes.
It's like this. They're the Tigers of last year. Like, what's it now? 5 games this year. We go. How did they actually lose?
They were dominating the ball
for
the first half of this match. All over them. Every time the ball went anywhere near Fafita, you're expecting points. Anytime Tino got his head through the line, you're expecting second phase play and something to happen out on the other side of the field. Come out after halftime, they just seemed like they did not give a fuck about playing the next 40 minutes of this game. I don't get it. I don't understand how it happens when they were dead set. I think they just thought that we'll cruise and we'll win by 40. We'll just score points wherever and do whatever we want.
It's interesting their backline because we've talked for years now about how there's concerns in on their edge defence, on their structure of the edge defence. But a lot of that's just application, I'm starting to think, because
looks
the two, how can you sit and watch 2 Burton bombs just hit the ground? One didn't hit the ground, one went straight into Averillo's arms. But they just sat back and watched 2 that should have been diffused by someone. This should never have been a contest. Two tries off those bombs, put them back in the game, and then even the match-winning try. Everyone just stood around and goes, "Oh, someone else will tackle." Oh, oh, fuck! Whoops.
No, they didn't.
What are we doing? That was it. That was the game. Like what? Yeah. What do you say about it?
It was just 14-0 after what? Fucking 25 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Feeder barges over. Tino fucking throws a beautiful offload for
Stimson.
The back rower to score. And it just didn't look like there was anything going on. Obviously, you mentioned there was a couple of bomb and hope moments from the Dogs that landed the way that they did the best possible way that they could for the Bulldogs. But the try for Fox was probably the highlight of the match, I thought, apart from maybe Tino's offload for the try for Stimson. The inside-outside play and then put the Fox away down the sideline. That was a really nice piece of play. The Titans just do not seem to be able to handle pressure at all.
No.
I'd be taking the captaincy off Tino, to be honest. I know week in, week out, he's close to their best player on the field, but fuck, he can blow a fuse and do stupid shit and give away penalties. And, he just seems to lose his cool when he does boil over. And I think it's foreign, really. I think you need a cool head and someone like Foreign to take the reins and try to tell these blokes where they have to be and what they should do and, pull your head out of your ass and all the rest of that. Basically, you're not going to do what I tell you. Get off the fucking field and go sit on the bench for a bit. But, because they really bubble over and lose control in the middle of the field, and then it just spreads like wildfire through the defense at times. It's fucking disgusting. They defended as well as the Cowboys and the Roosters at different times in this game. And probably lucky they're playing the Dogs, because most other teams probably would have blown them away.
Yeah, it's and especially I don't know. It's bizarre because they can look so crisp as well. Like they've got four and for feeder combination is flying. It just they tend to either sometimes not sometimes. But the back end of games, they go away from it. That they look so, like they come out flying for 20 minutes. Everywhere, it's like everyone's got their head screwed on. We know what we're doing. We're doing our job. And every week they come out and lead 12 or 18 every week. And then they go, oh, fuck, now what? What do we do now?
I think part of that, honestly think they need to go back to someone like Foran who can convey a message to the rest of the team. Because Tino does really get caught up with personal battles and starts, tit for tat shit. And you see it every week. Every time there's a blow up, he's the first bloke in there wanting to fight everyone. And I think they probably just need a bit of a cool head as captain and someone who can get that message across to the team. But still, they've got more problems than the captain.
But they've got three of the form forwards in the comp in this thing. Like
absolutely.
Tino
but they started getting beaten up in the middle of the field as well. Once the Dogs started putting pressure on, they started just getting they were getting stormed over at different points in the middle of the field. The back end of this game.
I will say that my man Mode. I think of those forwards, he goes hardest for longest. I think that even in the dying minutes, he's still having a crack, which is why he probably punches out 30 metres in the other two generally. And obviously, being in the middle helps. But I just wanted to wrap him quickly because there's not too many others I want to wrap. Campbell had some nice enough touches, goes missing times, touches the ball too much at times. But he's young, so I don't really know how to, not necessarily knock on him. It's just an observation. I think Chris Randall does a fair enough job. I think he's got what do you do here? But generally, he gets through a lot of defensive work. His service is quite good, and has not. I don't think they've really missed a trick with him being there. So no knock on that. I just, as I said, I think this comes back to execution and application, really, with the Titans. That's all I can put it back to. For the Bulldogs, ultimately, if it wasn't Matt Burton, there was nothing happening for most of this game. I think the move to sevens worked. I know two of them were just kicking hopes, but they came off. But as you said, the other play with him and Perham and whoever else was involved was lovely. But just him having the ball more, he'll learn a bit more when to run and take the line on, which he did quite well here actually in a couple of times. But I think that's working, so I think that's good. And but when you're up against those three forwards I mentioned from Titans, Tavita Pangai did have one of the games of his life. He was outstanding, matching the physicality, putting out output here in a team that hasn't had a middle for 6 weeks. So you've got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely you do. I thought Sammy and Kelly were probably the best of the backs from Titans. Throw Campbell in there. He did a serviceable job as he does, but he was probably a big part of the blokes that were standing there watching these bombs hit the ground because he didn't seem to be interested in getting underneath them, which was interesting. Boyd and Stimson were decent. Mo and Tino, as you mentioned, they were great. David Fafita was brilliant again and probably the best player on the field. He's really grown into the hype that was around him previous years. King and Kiraz were good for the Dogs. Chuck Fox in there. He's generally always good. Burton and Preston were two of the other standouts for the Bulldogs. Preston is really impressing week after week. Just doesn't stop. just continues to defend, and it's not a bad an edge runner. I probably wouldn't mind to see a pass in before the line, or just produce another attacking threat for him on that side rather than just his running game.
He a little bit has a feel that he's eventually going to end up in the middle, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks for that way.
Yeah. Just an observation.
If you could develop a short pass, even that extra, he'd add that extra bow to his arsenal. Tavita Pangai was one of their best players as well. It's fantastic. But I had Fafita as man of the match. I thought he was brilliant. Again, could throw up between Tino and TPJ to be the Penguin for the 2. And the other one, I think, gets the 1. And honourable mention to Burton. I know he was really the only reason that they scored points, but I think, yeah, as I said, a couple of those were more through the Titans not getting involved than him. Yeah, they're great kicks, but even if they get in underneath it and knock it on, or ball bounces a different way,
Yeah,
and it doesn't
you
end
actually,
up going straight
to your point, even if they knock it on, you probably wouldn't back them to score off a set play, would you?
No, that's right.
So fair enough. Okay, so where are we starting? 3 for Fafita?
Yep.
2 for... Give it
probably
to TPJ.
Junior.
Yeah, give it to TPJ because ultimately they
1
won.
for Tino.
And an honourable mention to Mo. He's been left out of everything this week.
Yeah,
your thoughts?
He just doesn't blow things open
No.
like the other 2 guys.
I know, yeah.
For some reason.
Your thoughts on the young 5'8"? Oluwapu.
Yeah, he's sort of faded out, doesn't he? Doesn't really seem to be trying to put his stamp on the game. He's just more catch and pass at the moment, which is a little bit disappointing to see because the first 2 or 3 games, his running game was quite attractive and he was drawing in defenders, but doesn't seem to be running the ball anywhere near as much as it was in his first game or 2.
No. Put on a big cleaned up 4 at one point.
Yeah, he absolutely smoked 4.
And he's just that size as well. Like, if he's not going to run, I don't know what he's... Because if he's only 18, 19, he's going to end up...
He's got plenty about him, and he's going to have a pretty solid career, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm not suggesting he won't. It just...
He seems to be sitting back and watching a little bit at the moment.
And it's game 3. Maybe it's, maybe it's up to someone else to drag him into the game.
Yeah, possibly.
Reed or someone else. Anyway, we'll see how that progresses. You said you saw this one coming. I didn't necessarily, but 2 legs Tommy, and it was a different world for the Seagulls. 42-14 over the Raiders.
Also, with just the Raiders being up for so long, this comp is just so hard to consistently be winning week in, week out, and it just has to come a time where fatigue sets in. Manly have been, let's face it, they've been disappointing for the majority of the season. They've realistically only played 2 or 3 good games during the year, and I just thought it was one of those games where the effort and the enthusiasm probably come through Manly. I didn't end up tipping them. I did put money on them, which was handy. But, we had 2 tries for the Raiders, 8 for Manly. 2 out of 2 conversions, played 5 out of 8 for the Sea Eagles. 66% completion, played 68%, 199 plus running meters for Manly, 6 line breaks to 8, 31 tackle bus, played 45, 16 offloads to 9, 2 forced dropouts to 1, a 40-20 from Manly, lovely 40-22. He's just the king of the 40-20, isn't he? He just does it all the time. 289 tackles played, 270, 12 errors to 13, 8 penalties conceded to 5, 2 ruck infringements against Manly, and a sin bin from both sides. 2-leg Tommy with 165 points, 108 points for Garrick, Schuster with 106, Whitehead with 103.
It was interesting. I think it was either Tommy's first or second touch, and he looked twice as quick as he has all year. And I was like, oh, here we go. It just felt
last week. I just saw that he was moving a hell of a lot better when he played the Sharks. And
it's almost like he was
from the first touch.
It's almost like it's a conscious effort to be, fit for Origin. But anyway,
maybe.
Which fine, fair enough. But geez, he was explosive here. This was the best of him. Before we get to that, though, we'll start at the start. I thought Paseka has a breakout game once every 8 weeks. It's like he has this big breakout game where he just demolishes a team and then disappears. But this was one of them, and I think that laid the platform against this Canberra pack, as you said, that maybe was fatigued, but Canberra just never got back into this after that. They just once those first shots were fired, it felt like it was all one-way traffic.
Yeah, well, it was about 8 or 10 minutes in, and Canberra looked like they were flying. They had all the momentum. They were up on top. Lovely little short ball. Whitehead just strolls over under the post. I don't think they got a hand on it. But as soon as that momentum shifted and the field position started going Manly's way, it just looked completely different.
Yep. Tell us more.
All right, tell us more.
I'll leave it to you.
came off the back of DCE's 40-20, really. That's when the momentum massively shifted towards Manly's way. But it was a conscious effort, I think, from Manly to really target the outside backs of Canberra. I don't think they've been under that much pressure for the majority of the year, especially the last 6 weeks or so when they've been able to get over the top of their opposition. But they made them make decisions in defence. They were running 2 and 3 different angles. There was lovely touches from Schuster. I know he was the bloke who stood there and watched Whitehead go past, but some of those look, as you mentioned with Appy, look and shape out the back and just really soft hands and a soft pass onto the chest for blokes to just stroll over as they get slapped on the back by the opposition to score tries. Garrick, Saab and Tommy were really combining well at different points. That try from Saab where he just appeared from off the side of the screen going and fucking twice as quick as anybody else on the field, caught up to Tommy and Garrick and just blew past them. That was fucking fantastic. I know he's gotten bigger when he was with his injury and put a lot of muscle on, but he hasn't lost any pace, I can tell you that. He was fucking flying down that right-hand side of the field. They really panicked the outside edges of Canberra. That's where it came down to it. Every time Tommy was, after he went through for that first try, as you mentioned, and just like collided across the field, you could see that the alarm bells went off in the outside backs of Canberra.
Yeah.
Every time he was anywhere near the ball. That led to a lot of what Schuster was able to do, to be honest, because he'd look and shape to pass to Tommy, and the outside defenders would either shoot off the line or stop and wonder what the hell's going on, and then a big back rower just barges over the top of somebody with a short ball from Schuster, or he'd hit Tommy, and then all sorts of chaos ensued after that. Those outside backs, they'll be having nightmares because there was a couple of times where they didn't get hands on people that just stroll past them. I think that's the game plan to now for pretty much anyone that plays Canberra.
Yeah.
Match the middle. You don't have to dominate the middle because that probably is their strongest part of their game. And make a conscious effort, second, third, fourth tackle to really pressure their outside backs and make them make decisions with angled runners and inside men, and basically the best ways you can set up your attack in any type of football for any team, really. But make them have multiple looks at different attacking shapes and they can make decisions. Tomoko got caught out a couple of times in defence. Croker got caught out a couple of times in defence where they were just standing flat-footed with players running at them, and it became very easy for Manly towards the back end of this game.
Mm. And I'm just looking back now over the draw, but you're right. Like when you actually look back, Penrith put 50 on Canberra. Dolphins put 30 on. The Bulldogs put 30 on. And they won a couple of these, and then 42 from them. Yeah, there are cracks, aren't there? In those outside backs. Elliot Whitehead's best game of the year, probably.
Yeah,
I would suggest.
He's missing for 6 weeks.
And I know we've been wrapping Chris, but he looked a bit lost here. I think DCE was pulling and both of them were, all three were.
Made him work so hard with his kicking. He just made sure that when he kicked, he was kicking as far away from him as possible and just making him track back constantly all night. Nobody in this Canberra team was flattered realistically, apart from probably Whitehead. And young Mariota, nice little try. Looks like something they can build with. Big, solid guy. And surprisingly quick for a back rower. So.
And I guess, the bloke will wrap just after Burbo went down early. Ethan Bullimore did a pretty good job.
Fantastic.
He was physical again, hit some good lines, and was involved a lot of the game. So made 30-odd tackles. I think he led the tackle count. 30-odd tackles as well.
I had an analogy that I just left out.
Oh, no. Tell us.
I was just around those outside backs of the Raiders. Like they, down both sides of the field, they looked downright petrified when they had the likes of Tommy and Garrick and that running at them, and they just kept backing up, and then by the end of it, like a scared little puppy, they just rolled over and showed their belly and wanted belly rubs because they were too scared to continue to fight. They just rolled over and exposed the stomach. They got cut to pieces out there. I haven't seen anything like it recently, to be honest. But the way that Turbo was basically doing whatever the hell he wanted. And then you had Saab and Garrick chiming in with it.
Yeah, no, it was very impressive. And I guess, as you said,
Definitely flattered by
they were
very
flattered
passive defence.
by Canberra, but I'd love to see what Schuster produces under pressure or in clutch games, but um, we'll
for a
see.
bloke who's been, been battered pillar to post about his weight and his effort and whatever for the last probably close to a year, realistically, because he copped a bit of that at the back end of last year as well.
Yeah,
Mainly when he was playing there. So really good to see such a dominant performance. It just shows you the skill you've got as a playmaker. It's ball playing.
absolutely. So you treat Manly as wildcards, or you treat them as
Yeah, absolutely.
you just go?
I always thought that they were definitely a top 18, and they started this year as average. So they're another team. They're very similar to Parramatta, except they probably started a little bit better. They've got a few more points under their belt. So they're now, I'd say them and Parramatta are probably the guys that realistically are going to be fighting tooth and nail for that 8th position and be a chance of maybe knocking somebody out of the final series. Whereas there's a few of those other teams that I think if they do end up in that 7th or 8th position, probably just go out straight sets.
And what they don't want to do is drop 5 over Origin without Tommy and DCE.
Yeah, DCE would be a big question mark for them.
They've got the Knights, they've got the Dolphins, the Eels, the Storm, and the Roosters in that time. So not too bad. But
50-50 how they end up.
We know how they go without the 2 big guns. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting.
I dare say they'll be trying to get those guys to back up.
I think so. Well, Daly will put on his dinner suit. He'll be fine. It'll just be how much they need to nurse Tommy. He'll want to, as he always has, but we'll see what happens there. And no Jake in that time either. Canberra.
No, that's a big one.
Canberra have the bye. They then hit the Tigers, which is a very interesting game for all the reasons.
Probably the worst time for them to catch the
I was going to say, everything you've said about their defence is probably not what they want to copy. Warriors, Roosters, Titans, Dragons through that time. So some interesting games. But a pretty cosy draw, really, for the rest of the year, just looking through that. Not a lot of apart from, I don't think they play another top 14. They play the Sharks and the Broncos the last 2 rounds. So that's
interesting how hard they have to fight to get back into that winning position.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they had their run. Seemingly, it's come to a complete halt at the moment. They've got the bye, and it's that Tigers game will mean a lot to their season coming back into that. Because if they can get a win there and then jag another one in the next couple of weeks, they look pretty safe for the 8. But they drop, 3 of their next 4.
Yeah,
there's some problems.
It's
the ladder's so tight. I cannot remember having a competition this close. Like you got 5 or 6 teams tied on 12 or 14 points. You've got the bottom 4 are only 2 wins away from being somewhere around the top 8. Like it's just crazy.
I think here the top 5 teams are all on 16 points.
Yeah.
And then the Dolphins, Warriors, Raiders are 14. Seagulls 13. And as you've said, like the Tigers and Dragons, if the Tigers beat Canberra and have got the bye, beat Canberra, all of a sudden they're on 12 points out of nowhere. So what
2 or 3 wins. Like you string 3 games together, you can go from last to being in around 8.
I know. Exciting for those teams that may be capable of doing it. 3 to Turbo. Where you want to go next? You're saying Schuster's flat, didn't you give him the 2?
No, I gave him the 2.
Yep. And Paseka
really
or DCE?
Nice touches of brilliance. And then I had Garrick or DCE.
Give it to DCE. I had Paseka DCE, so if we're crossing over, we'll continue that trend.
Yes.
All right. If you got a pop plan of the week, there's plenty around. Which team?
I think
which
I
player
gave this bloke my salute last week, but getting my slap this week. It was Helam Lukey for the Cowboys. 3 runs in 50 minutes on the field. Like, are you a back rower or what the fuck are you doing? Like, 3 runs for 30 metres in 50 minutes. Did make 22 tackles, but he also missed 8 tackles as well, and was a turnstile in a couple of those too.
So, if I will give my pot plant to the bloke next to him just because I had to find someone. Val, potentially the pair of them there, Val and Lukey, may have been better off being replaced by a garden bed of sorts and would have stopped a couple of those tries. But
Held hands.
they get our pot plants of the week, which is the player that would probably have their job done by, as said, a pot plant. Have you got a slap?
Garden ornaments. Slapping Tommy did. As Cowboys, they were woeful. Another one, he was quite good last week, but 2 errors, missed 6 tackles, did make 17, but 10 runs for 100 metres, which is okay, but he's much better than what he put out there on the weekend. Granted, he didn't have a lot of opportunities, but he didn't create anything either. So the 6 missed tackles in the front lines, never acceptable, really.
I'm going to slap Victor Radley. I just think that was a dumb shit thing to do. And, Kenny Bromwich not far behind.
Why the fuck didn't I do that?
But I just think match situation, everything else going on, that was just dumb.
You can chuck Kafusi in there too. That looked premeditated to me. That looked like he was trying to smack him in there.
Yeah, there was some ill will in that game, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
More than I expected. The thing we didn't touch on, what do you think of the Tino forearm?
It's an interesting one because that bumper bar has always been sort of a pretty hot a hot talking point in and around the way the forwards run the ball. For mine, I didn't like how far away it was from his body. If he'd sort of tucked it in a bit closer to his chest and sort of leant that way, I think you can probably let it go. But for mine, I probably did deserve a week. Just the fact that it was so far away from the body and there was the striking motion away from him when he did make contact. It's a hard one because they generally don't penalise the bloke running the ball anyway, unless he pretty much grabs a bloke by the back of the head and knees him in the face. They generally let things go.
Yeah, they don't like the lifting knee, but not so much the...
Yeah, the thing that really sort of made me uncomfortable was how far away from his body he was, and there was a striking motion in it as well.
I find it hard to always think that there's premeditation when you're in attack, but as you said, the distance away didn't look great, I don't think.
The way he really leant into it.
Yeah.
And he was looking at him as he ran over top of him as well. So.
That didn't help. And to wrap up, we've got a salute of the week. Another one who's copped a few slippers from me over the year, but I've got to salute Luke Brooks in his 200th game to produce that and to make all Tigers fans happy and to have his name chanted. At least it's something he will never forget. So a very enjoyable Saturday evening was produced by him and his friends there in black and gold.
Most points ever from the West Tigers. You have to stand up and applaud it. And Stafford Power out in the centres there. Absolute career best form. Probably to date his best performance he's ever provided in first grade rugby league. What was it? 2 tries, try assist, 230 running metres, 12 tackle busts, 5 line breaks. Like, talk about a fucking night out.
Yeah.
Well, you got my salute.
Talakai's breakout game was doing that to Morgan Harper. He did that to Val Holmes. Like, that's a fair effort. So, yeah, kudos to him. Very good, Barn. Thank you.
And you?
Check out rugbyleaguemerch.com. Check out YouTube, Spotify. Leave us some feedback. Leave us some comments on the YouTube channel if you're watching it there. Tell us what we've said wrong and right and what you think. And, of course, send in your pot plants and salutes and slaps through social media. Footy and Frothies on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But apart from that, we'll be back very shortly to preview the abridged round 13. Take care, guys, and we will chat very soon.